So Tinker's Creek is one of the largest tributaries of the Cuyahoga River, and it flows through much of Bedford. What is today the Metro Parks Bedford Reservation was, of course, the early township of Bedford, and that's kind of the area we're going to focus on. So along the creek, mills sprang up as early as the 1820s when Europeans, mostly coming from New England, were settling in this area. And one of the first things you needed was sawmills to chop up wood and make it into planks for houses. So you're using wood to saw and make houses and furniture, and then of course you need to grind grain for food. So those were two necessities in the early years of the 1800s in any community, pretty much anywhere you went. So here in Bedford Township, several spots along Tinker's Creek became sites of those sawmills and grist mills. The sawmills went away a lot earlier than the grist mills. Sawmills became one of the first to be used by like steam power, so then they could move away from the water. Grist mills tended to stay here, including here at what is our Viaduct Park. So as the water is heading towards what they call the Great Falls of Tinker's Creek, of course, the water is rushing down and you've got power there where the water is used. But they did not put their mill wheels by the waterfall. It wasn't the waterfall going through the mill wheel like it is in some places. Instead, what they did is as the water rushed towards the waterfall, they diverted it and made a mill race. So just before it gets to Tinker's Creek Falls, there was a dam. And then the dam would force some of that water over here to the side of the waterfall, and it would flow then down and go through the mill race and go into the mill wheels for the grain mill or the grist mill. And there was a grist mill here as early as the 1820s, and it lasted until the early 1900s. It's one of the longer lasting. Now, it probably went through a couple iterations. We have pictures of the last mill that was here starting in about the 1880s, and it lasted until the 19-teens. And that's the one we have photographs of. Obviously, we don't have photographs of the earlier ones because there was no photography. So we're lucky to have any photographs at all, because very often we did not get pictures of early mills. Mills were so ubiquitous. They were be like you or I going down and taking a picture of CVS. Why would we do that? Or Giant Eagle, right? Why would we do that unless you happen to be taking a selfie and it's caught in the background? And that's with our pictures that we can take with no money being expended, right? Early photography, of course, was very expensive. So you wanted to take pictures of grand buildings or important people or your family portrait or a battlefield or something. You didn't take pictures of a grist mill. Everybody knew what a grist mill looked like because everybody had one in their town. So we're lucky to have the pictures that we do have, and one is on the sign by the falls there, of the grist mill that ended up being here, the longest running one. So the water, of course, is a place of power. That's what it's used for. And it became then not only for a grist mill, but there was a cider mill and a door and sash factory. So making, as it sounds like, doors, but also sashes for around the door frame. And they made blinds there, like our levelor blinds, the little honeycomb ones, only think of them with wooden slats. Those were what they used scrap pieces of wood for, to make wooden blinds. And that was done right here, just by where the dam would go across. So the dam went across. There's really not much left to see of it. You can kind of picture where it went. And I can never remember whether it's right there or right there. So right down there is where the dam would have gone across. The other thing to remember is that this would have been a super, super popular, busy, noisy place. Today, it's mostly people taking a walk or playing in the creek. But in the days when the mills were here, people would be coming down. This was Willis Road. It continued on down. It went across the creek and up to Union Street. So there was a bridge there that the locals have ended up calling the Red Bridge because it was painted that somewhere in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And the bridge took you up to Union Street. Now, of course, that's totally gone and we can't get across the creek here. down by the grist mill in the early 1900s was one of the first power plants in the Cleveland area. So it was built to produce street lights for Bedford. They were one of the first to have street lights in their area, and it used the same water. You will hear a story that the mill race where you saw that tunnel, that at night they'd shut down the gate to the one because they didn't need to make, they weren't doing grist at night, they weren't making flour at night, and it would go to the power plant. It's not actually true. There actually was, at both times it went to both places. And that closed down about 1910 when other sources of electricity came to being. And around 1910, 1912, the mills were kind of abandoned, eventually came down. I don't know whether they actually took the one mill down. I think they did and left the foundations that we can see today. I think the power plant actually just kind of eroded away over the years, or people came and took the bricks. It was not like, didn't get imploded or something dramatic like that. So that's this section of Tinker's Creek by the falls. The falls, of course, themselves are just gorgeous, and they're the kind of waterfall where the hard Berea sandstone is on top and the softer shales underneath, so it's kind of eating away and creating shelves which eventually fall down, as opposed to some of our other waterfalls in Bedford, which are more like Bridal Veil Falls, where the softer rock is at the top and it's cascading down in what looks like a bridal veil. So that's pretty much about this area here.